I love you enough to want you to support you on this journey through grief, because grief is universal and her journey is all of our journeys. Teresa is everybody. She's every one of us when we're grieving. She's the universal character who has her own specific journey, but it really is all of our journeys. We are bonded through grief. So if I'm giving this book to somebody I love, I would say I love you enough to want to support you through this journey in life, because it's part of the human condition. We have loss. We're mortal. And being mortal makes us want to savor every day. And I think that's what finally it comes down to, is that we have to live in the moment and we have to savor every day and celebrate small triumphs, even when we're in really dark times. And I think ultimately it is inspirational and hopeful. I hope that it is. That is my quest. And I would also say that anybody who wants to get in touch with me can reach out to me via my website. I am very good about interacting with writers who want to know more.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, a podcast where we talk to authors from around the world and learn from their stories. We learn from how they've written their books, what they've done, and we get to meet great authors. And Lisa's on the podcast today, and not only has she written many books, and she's also taught. She's done a lot of great stuff. She's got a great book tour coming out. She's going to be all over. Our U.S. friends are going to love her. She can be everywhere. And she does workshops. She helps teach people. She's just a great servant of writers. And I love having Lisa on the podcast. Lisa, nice to have you here. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Lisa, tell everybody where you are right now, today, before you do this big tour of yours. Come on, where are you?
I am in Mancos, Colorado, which is a small mountain town near Mesa Verde National Park. It's a town of, I don't know, it depends upon who you talk to. Some people say 1,200, some say 1,400, but we can all agree that it's a small town. And it is near Mesa Verde, and we have the La Plata Mountains in the back. So it's really quite a beautiful place. And also, we're having early spring, which may be a phenomenon that's happening other places, but it's supposed to be 70 degrees today, and it was in the 60s yesterday. So, this afternoon, I'm going for a hike.
There you go. Get outside, get that fresh air. Take us with you. I like that. Nothing like that nice fresh air after being kind of locked up in the house over the winter. It's nice to get out and explore, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful time of year. It's gorgeous. It really is beautiful.
Nice. Excellent. Talk a little bit about your author journey, Lisa. Like, where did all this begin for you? I want to inspire authors that are listening that are maybe the early days of writing and listening to you as an author who's well down the path compared to where they are starting out. I want to inspire them in your story. How did it all start for you?
Well, I've always been a writer because it's just how I survived and how I made sense of the world. So I think, like artists, writers are kind of born to it. It's just something you love doing, whether you ever publish a word or not. It doesn't really matter. It's sort of artists could, draw or, paint or sculpt or whatever they do, and they may never show it, but it is who they do. It's an integral part of their personality. So writing for me was my way of making sense of the world, which wasn't always a place that felt like I could make sense of it. So I started writing at 12, won an award in high school. I continued to write. I didn't really publish till I was in my 40s. So that's my inspirational journey. It is never too late. If you want to publish, do not give up. And persistence is probably the best quality for any artist, is that you just have to stay with it. And sooner or later, you find your people. You find the people that really like what you have to say. And it's not the same for everyone. I mean, there's certain genres of writing I absolutely don't read. I don't read horror, for example. Just don't like it. That doesn't mean that, that Stephen King shouldn't publish anymore. Obviously, he doesn't need me to read his books. He has quite a following, and it doesn't mean he's not a good writer. He's an excellent writer. It's just not my genre. I like, character-driven fiction. That is really what I like. The characters are everything to me. And I'm also a poet. So I have several books of poetry published, which I think helped me as a fiction writer. So yeah, I've always been a writer. I mean, though I have to say to your listeners that I made a living as a lot of things. And one of the things I made a living at strangely came back when I was writing this novel, which is that I was in counseling. I was counseling therapy for 18 years. And I got out of it, went back, got an MFA, taught at the college level and at arts high school, and never really thought about it again until I started writing this book and it kicked in. So, because it's a woman's journey through long grief, and I found it was really useful to have that background. Didn't know I'd use it again. So don't ever think, even the jobs you have as a server in a diner isn't going to come back and help you as a writer. All those are stories, and they're part of your, each of our biography, and they become important.
You mentioned that poetry helped you as a fiction writer. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on how those two kind of work together, support each other?
It's coming more from people who read my books who say, I can tell you were a poet because your writing is very lyrical and you pay, attention to images. So it wasn't conscious on my part. I just think it's how I write. So I do tend to use a fair amount of images, and I do just have a lyrical style, I guess. I don't notice it, but other people have come to me and said, I know you have a background as a poet. I can tell from this book and from your stories. So, I mean, I think all writing helps all writing. It's kind of like, how it is. Any kind of writing you do. I mean, write letters, write a blog. I do have a blog. It's called Literary Imaginings. So you can find me, and I just converted it to a Substack. So nice. It's WordPress, but I'm trying to, Substack seems to be the new flavor of ice cream for blog stuff. So I have a Substack. But I like any kind of writing. I like writing letters.
Yeah, right. And then, I've heard people talk about journaling, all those different things. The act of writing, however that surfaces for you, just by doing that on a more regular basis helps.
Yep.
For an author that's listening who hasn't quite yet found their voice as a writer, as an author, any kind of suggestions for them on navigating the path of finding your voice?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a work in progress for all of us, and our voice will change as we get older. But I always tell young writers or new writers that go into public places. I've had a lot of students that say, well, I don't know how you get ideas for characters. How do you get ideas? It's just so hard. And I said, go into a public place. You're in a cafe and there's two people having a private conversation, or they think it's a private conversation, but you can hear every word because people always think they have a privacy bubble around them when they in fact do not. And it's free for the taking. Bring a notebook with you everywhere. Those little moleskin notebooks, great, fit in a back pocket. If you have, backpack or a purse, they fit in all of those places. Jot things down. Those are your characters. They're coming to you. So, and jot down ideas. If you're a poet and you see something, I was out on my porch this morning because it's warm enough to eat out there, and we were seeing birds beginning to nest. Jot things down. What do you hear? What are the birds? Is a migrating bird coming back? That's interesting. So all those little details make stories and poems. You have to be a good observer. I mean, I think being an acute observer is everything to writers and artists. It just is everything. And we get dull to it. I mean, if we're spending all our day on social media or watching television or doing things like that, it makes us numb to the things around us. So you have to redevelop those skills of listening, skills of noticing what's going on around you. And it's kind of good for all of us, writer or not, to pay attention to the world and the natural world too.
One of the things you mentioned before we hit record is you're going to be doing this book tour to support the launch of the book and for people to come and meet with you, and you get to meet with them. It's exciting. You also talk about workshops. What's your intent for a workshop over a book signing? Tell me about the two different audiences that you're trying to focus on those, and how do you show up differently for a book signing and that kind of book tour compared to a workshop?
My book signings are, I think, pretty different from other people's book signings. I'm a very active person, and I interact with my audience. I don't sit there and read. I interact, and I ask questions, and they ask questions. So it's a give and take. So they're lively. I did one last night at Maria's bookshop in Durango, and we had just so many great questions. And I move around if I need to, and interact with people, try to ask what they're thinking about. Pretty much in every audience, because this is a book about grief, I usually get one or two people that are dealing with some sort of a grief situation. Grief is very universal. So this book, which is right here,
There you go.
is touching a lot of chords in that way. Workshops are an entirely different animal because there's something I have to organize. When I do book signings and readings, it's completely spontaneous. I don't plan it, other than I've now got it down to a few excerpts that I read because it's for all authors of novels, you want to read things that aren't spoilers because it really ruins it. This book has a lot of twists and surprises in it, and if I ruin them for you, it's not going to be the same fun read. So I try to read enough to show her snarky voice. She is very snarky, so people think, "Oh, it's a depressing book. It's about loss," but she's really just funny, and self-deprecating. So I try to at least represent that. This is not going to be a depressing read. With workshops, I plan them, and they're all different. So the one I just did in for Southwest Writers was on how do you go. What are the things that make a publishable novel? How do you go about doing that? So it was a 2-hour workshop that ended with me giving specifics about queries and synopsis and all the things I had to go through to get a publisher for this novel, which were new to me. So I don't claim to be an expert on them. I'm really not. But it worked for me, and it might work for someone else. But I think more than that was how do you write a thing that's a novel that's good enough that will catch the eye of somebody? And just the suggestions about having early readers, having them be able to pick up on things that are really not consistent, not working. And I had 4 early readers for this, and I have 4 I have another novel completed that I'm trying to sell right now, and I have 4 readers for that, and it's really helpful. And also how to write character-driven fiction. For me, the character is everything, and they come to me early, and they live in my head for a long time, which sounds really weird, but I feel like I have to know everything about them, even if it's not in the book. If you asked me a question, what was her favorite food or color or something, I would know the answer, even though if it's never in the book, because she's been in my head so long. So, yeah, and then the workshop I'm doing upcoming on my book tour is about grief and how grief is not linear. And using it in your writing. So, because this is a novel that deals with that, we're interested. So I pretty much will do a workshop on anything anybody asks me to, unless it's, writing horror
Yeah.
or dystopian fiction or sci-fi. I don't do that. So I'm not able to do a workshop, but anything to do with fiction, character driven, anything to do with poetry, short stories, I'm happy to do it. So they usually ask me tell me what they want, and then I do it.
For authors listening who are contemplating doing a book tour, any suggestions on maybe the mechanics of setting one up, or also what to do at the book tour itself, the event, to engage with your audience? I like that you move around, just reading from the stage, or what you're actually working with your audience. Any suggestions for an author that's thinking about doing a book tour?
Well, one thing, unless you have bottomless pockets or an agent or publisher that has bottomless pockets, and very few of them do, even the big ones, you're going to be funding a lot of this yourself. So depending on the kindness of a lot of people I know across the country who are putting me up or putting up with me, which however you want to say it. But I did all of this myself. I am working with a publicist who's helped me with podcasts and articles. I've been writing a lot of articles. But I set up all the tours. And one thing I learned, and this was new to me, is that it's way better to call than to email. That for some reason I had much better luck when I called. I could email and email till the cows come home, and then I don't hear from people. But I call them, and I have a personal contact with somebody, and I find out their name. I had really good luck with that. because I'm an unknown entity in some of the places I'm going. I'm not a household name or anything. So I have to convince them that I'm going to entertain their audience enough. And how I sweeten that for some that don't know me is to offer a mini workshop of some sort that will do a little bit of writing, because people in libraries really like that. It draws people in. So I was kind of willing to do any of that if that would help me to get a gig somewhere. In the Northeast, it was easy because I know people. Um, I lived there for over 30 years. I have relationships, and bookstores know me, and I taught at a college there. And the college is going to have me. I'm going to visit classes and do a reading there. So, and some of my former students are coming to events. So, I had a good base of people that know me more than I do around here. Although I've had local readings. I had a launch here that was well attended. I offered food. That's another trick. So when you launch your book, have a little budget to offer food. Food matters. People show up for food. If you can, spring for some wine too, wine and food,
There
that's
you
a
go.
winning combo. It will get people that wouldn't ordinarily come, and they may come for the food, but they'll stay and listen and probably buy your book. So you have to be imaginative, a little bit creative, and creating a theme. In fact, I've themed the food to the book, and I will do that even more so the next time, because the next book, if I find a publisher, has a lot more food in it. But this one had basil in it, so we had basil themed snacks, which was they were really delicious. So
Okay, so take us into the book now. I want to know more around kind of the origin story of the book, how this came to be. You have so many books that we can choose from your library, but this new one, kind of tell us like where did this all come from? How did it begin?
So the shape of what remained comes from a short story that I wrote. The short story is called Monuments, and when I wrote it, I knew it was meant to be a novel. I have two short stories that were meant to be novels. The other one is also done. I haven't sold it yet, but it's done. It was not called The Shape of What Remains. That's actually a title I stole for myself because it was a title of a poem. And I always liked that title. It goes with the poem just fine, but it really matches this collection. And I knew Monuments is kind of, yeah, that doesn't work for a novel. It's not anything compelling. But Teresa, the main character, was in my head after I wrote the short story. She was living in my head and kind of nagging me and saying, I have a much bigger story, It sounds crazy, I know, but that's kind of my writing process. And I just felt like I had to do it. But at the time that I wrote the short story, 2015, I didn't have the time to do it. Are a lot of balls in the air. It's a lot of juggling. And I was working full time, and I just didn't have the time in my life to do a novel. So I kind of started it and I put it aside. I had a book of poetry published in 2022. I had another book of short stories published in 2018. So I was doing other things, publishing in magazines and working full time. But when COVID hit, I had a lot more time, like all of us had a lot more time. And I decided to really focus on it. And that's when I got the whole draft done. And I sent it out to readers. I have two online writing groups, both from the Northeast. One's going on over 20 years. And I have a writing buddy who we talk once a week and nag each other. So those two things really helped, like, what are you doing? What have you done this week? I said, oh, I've done nothing. I've cleaned the house, I did laundry. So no, no, you should be writing, get yourself out of the house. And that's another tip. Some of us have a lot of trouble writing in the house because we think, well, we, really should put the laundry in the dryer, and the kitchen's looking kind of grungy and should clean that. I get very distracted like that. I mean, if you saw the rest of my office right now, it looks okay right here. It's a complete mess. I have boxes of books and because I'm in process. So getting out of the house, going to a cafe, it works for me. And my husband often says, "Well, how can you do that? It's noisy in those places." And I think, "Yeah, but it's not my noise. It has nothing to do with me." And yet I
Yeah.
could grab it if, sometimes it's interesting. But I have a little cafe that happens to be closed till tomorrow, but that I take myself to when I really need to get the heck out of the house and just have a place that is not, I don't own the mess there. and I can focus a lot better. So the entire final draft of this got done in my local cafe.
Nice.
And it was kind of a joke. I would show up every day with my laptop, and I had a special favorite place, and I would get really upset if I went in there and somebody was sitting in my place. It's like, how dare they?
How dare you?
Yeah.
Are you going to do a reading at that cafe? Like, that's where the book was born.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. Until you mentioned this just now, I never thought of it. But it's not big,
Yeah.
but it's mighty, and they actually have a gorgeous porch that's heated, that actually is kind of big. I just because you said that, I'm going to go to them and
Good.
and ask them. I think it's a great idea, a really
Yeah.
great idea, because it is true that we have two local cafes, and the first one never worked for me because it's just so public. It's right in the center of town that I can't get in there without 20 people coming in that I know, because this is a very small town. And like,
Yeah.
how are we doing? What are we doing? And I just
Yeah.
couldn't do it. This other one is a little out of town, so it just, I don't know. There are still people I know that come in, but if they see me writing, they're usually respectful and just wave and
Yeah.
pass on by. So, but a great idea. Thank you for that.
I would love to see photos if that happens. I'd love to see what it looks like.
I will send them to you. That is a really
Awesome.
cool idea. I probably can't schedule anything else till I get back, because
Yeah.
I'm going to be gone from April 13th till June 1st,
Wow.
which is nuts. But we're driving, and I live in nowhere, Colorado, and we're driving to the East Coast. And we also have a detour for it's a detour. Not really a detour. We're going to Ireland for 12 days as well, in the middle of the
Nice.
tour, because Ireland was the birthplace of my 5 other books and where this story ultimately came from. And I have a lot of friends there, and I will probably do an event, but I'm not really trying that hard to get one, because I kind of want to, like, just chill and hang out and walk on the beach. So, but I did hear this morning that one of the local bookstores is going to carry my book. So that's good.
That's exciting. For the book, then, for The Shape of What Remains, who would you say is your ideal reader for the book?
It's definitely an adult. It's not
Okay.
not a children's book. I would say, I wouldn't say it's just for women. All the men who have read it have loved it. I've had a lot of men read it. All of us have had loss in our life. There's pretty much no one who's untouched by loss unless you're a small child. And so anybody who has dealt with loss and really been a little stuck for a little while, or just wants to better understand that grief is not linear. My wonderful group that I read at for last night, we were talking about that, about how there are triggers, so you lost your parent, some years ago, or your grandparent, and you think, well, okay, I'm long past it. They were old. They had a nice life. And then all of a sudden you walk into a store and somebody's wearing the cologne your grandfather wore, and everything comes back to you. All of us have had that experience, particularly with smell. For some reason, that's a very powerful trigger of memory. It just really is. I can remember years and years ago walking into a store and smelling the cologne of an old bad boyfriend that I had years and years ago. And it just brought me back. Oh, I'm so glad I'm out of that relationship. But it was, it's just a very strong trigger of memory. So I think because loss is universal, any adults, men or women, who are willing to go on a little journey with somebody who is going, trying to get to the other side of a very paralyzing loss. This is a parent who lost a child. Not a spoiler, because the book opens 10 years later and she's still stuck. So her husband has seemingly moved on. She's stuck. So it's also, I just got asked to read an article called "Do Men and Women Grieve Differently?" And I started the article kind of feeling, I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea that men and women grieve differently, because that puts us all in a box like we're all the same. All men do this and all women do that. And I never believed that. As I started writing it, I think it's just societal more than anything else that women are allowed to be more publicly emotive than men. It's just more socially accepted. I don't think it means that men don't grieve just as much as women. And actually, it makes it harder for them in some ways because they can't show it, so they may keep it inside for a really long time. So I think this novel I've heard it's spoken to men as well as women. I can think of two men that have approached me after and written reviews and said it really, really, really spoke to them. So I think it's for any adults. It's just absolutely not for kids. Um, you know, it's
Okay.
adult theme and it has adult relationships in it.
Tell us more about your main character then. What do we need to know about this character that we don't know at this point that would be helpful as we're going through and reading the story?
She likes Janis Joplin.
Oh,
So even though
okay.
she's a millennial, all the characters in this book are millennial or younger. She has a 19-year-old son. Um, her father left when she was 14 years old, but before he left, he had a profound influence on her musical taste. And Janis Joplin ends up being really important to her as she goes through this journey because she's just a very, raucous and purging kind of music. And it really does speak to Teresa. It's helpful to her. So it comes up throughout. Um, Her husband is a professor who studies Shakespearean anti-heroes, which is a little bit, you know, ironic on my part because he's kind of an anti-hero. And had nerdy fun with that. I gotta say, I had nerdy fun with that. She's a Chaucer specialist. I don't know. I was an English major in college. I was neither a Shakespearean scholar nor a Chaucerian scholar, so I cannot claim rights to either of those. I had fun doing research on both. And not that I didn't, of course, I took a Shakespeare class. Everybody takes a Shakespeare class, but and he's not, anywhere near as important, but I just had a lot of fun with that idea that their professions can sort of figure in their journey. It's kind of one of the fun things we do as writers is everything is not exactly what it seems. There's always layers to things. And I think that's maybe comes from my poetry training is everything it has a layer. So Teresa isn't what she seems. She has many layers to her. She has this, raucous Janis Joplin music layer. She is in a book group where, she has weird relationships in that book group. She has an amazing relationship with her mother-in-law. And my sister-in-law asked me if that mother-in-law was based on my mother-in-law, who I adored. And I never really thought that it was, but I could see some similarities. It's those unconscious things. I mean, there are many things that are different, but in terms of her kindness and just unconditional acceptance of her daughter-in-law during this difficult time, I would say yes. There's definitely some qualities there that were my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law as well. So that was an interesting comment. Not anything that was conscious on my part, because my characters don't come from real people. They come from my imagination. I don't know anybody like Teresa. I really don't. But I'm sure she's got, composite qualities because all of you writers out there listening, all of your characters do have composite qualities of people they absolutely do, which is why going to a public place is fun because you can grab, the tattoo that the server had that's really weird. I just had a poem published in an Irish anthology about a server with a really interesting tattoo of a star and moon on the nape of her neck, very delicate. And it fascinated me, and I made it into a poem. So any of those things, any of those physical descriptions, they're all composites. People are interesting, aren't they?
I would think that person with that tattoo that caught your eye would love to know that there's now a writing out in the world that's because of that, right? That would be a so cool story to walk up to your next order and go, oh, by the way, I love your tattoo. And here's something I wrote about it.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I was passing through remote town in Washington State, so I don't know that I'd ever see her again. But for some reason, tattoos, they're not in this book, but they figure in my writing. And my new novel really figures as a tattoo. It's almost a character. It's a very important part of the novel. I have this repulsion and fascination for tattoos. I don't know which is stronger. I don't have any, and I will never have any. But I have a story that I like very much that was published in a international magazine. It's called Boa Constrictor, and it's about a man who had tattoos all the way down his arm, and a woman who's really repelled by them, but really likes the man, and is trying to figure out whether she could have a relationship with a guy who has tattoos like that. Um, so I don't know what it is about tattoos, but it's one of those things I obsess about. Like, and they're having, clearly having a moment because everybody's got them. They're so popular.
Interesting. So I'm going to put you into a scenario, Lisa. I want to see what you're going to do with this. You're at one of your book signings on your book tour, and you go up to the little mini stage area where you're going to be speaking from. You look down at the people that are sitting there in front of you, and there she is, your main character. Teresa has shown up. You're shocked. You're like, how is this even happening? She is there, completely her, and it's question and answer time. Her hand goes up. Your main character has a question for you, the author, about the book that she is. It's about her. What do you think she's going to ask you? What do you think would be her question to you?
Figure out how to answer this without giving you a spoiler, which is hard because she has some choices in the novel, and I can remember in my head saying, "Don't do it, Teresa. Don't do it. It's a bad idea." And she was going to do what she was going to do. So she might ask me why I made that choice to have her go down a road that, ultimately wasn't a good choice for her. And I don't want to give a spoiler, but she did make some bad decisions, as do we all. Because she's human. And she's also was quite vulnerable. She's human. She's in a situation where she has a very detached husband, and that's not really a spoiler because that's established pretty early on that he's not only detached, but he's probably having affairs. He's thrown himself into his research. He sometimes doesn't even come home. And she has, here she is still in extended grieving. So she makes choices and they're not always good. Yeah, I wonder, but I don't know what else she would ask me. I feel really pretty sure that she would be okay with how the book ends, because I think what I've learned about endings, and this is probably good to say to everybody, is that they have to be both surprising and inevitable. That feels impossible sometimes, and I don't know that I got it right in the new novel. I feel like I absolutely got it right in this novel. And it wasn't like I wanted. I mean, I actually didn't know how it was going to end until it ended. And this was my probably 12th incarnation of an ending. And I read it to my writers group and they said, "You got it. You finally got it. That's it. You nailed it." So, and I agreed. I did. But it took a lot to get to that point. And I can't say I liked it. I mean, there were parts of it that I would have rather she did something different. But again, it's that inevitable and surprising that resonates, and I didn't make that up. It resonates in my head. So I guess she would probably say, "Why did you choose to have me do X action, knowing, where it would go?" And I would say, because characters, like people, do stupid things sometimes, all of it. And it's kind of how we learn. And it was pretty inevitable, the stupid things she did, that they needed to happen because it's her journey. I mean, all of us can remember mistakes we've made in our lives, and some of them are the things we learn the most from. That bad relationship, the cologne that I smelled that reminded me of this really bad boyfriend. It taught me how to choose better with other relationships. This was a good person, and I got it. But did I get it immediately when, I was young and I looked at him, he's really good looking. And, it's like, we don't always think with our brains. Sometimes we are controlled by our hormones, and, we make bad decisions. So, and it's part of the growing process. I mean, think about angsty teenagers and the dumb things they do. She has a son in this book who goes through that because he's a college freshman, and that was kind of fun for me to have him have a little bit of a journey of first love and dealing with that, going away to college, and we all can remember the first time you're away from home and having relationships and nobody's watching over you.
Right.
Kind of a heady feeling. You can do what you want finally. So. Yeah. So she doesn't make good decisions all the time. And she probably would ask me why I, caused her some pain there.
Your book covers the whole idea about grief and working through that. I'm curious, what has grief taught you in your own life? How has grief been your teacher?
Um, Grief is always a teacher. And it's interesting because I just got asked to write another article and they said, and you have to make this one personal. And I said, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm really, I really just don't want to do that. It has to be about something that happened to you. So I thought and thought and thought, well, I could turn it down. Maybe I don't want to write it. But then I thought about something that's far enough away that I could speak to it. And it was that when I was 12 years old, I lost a friend in a really good friend in a plane crash. And I had never flown. So, and I didn't fly till I was well into my 20s, probably because of that. And I had a fear of flying for years. And it's funny now because I fly all the time. I mean, I really do fly a lot because I have to. And I got over it, mostly from just doing it a lot. But I still don't love flying. But that grief stayed with me a very long time. And one of the reasons it stayed with me a long time, and it's a cautionary tale, I guess, is that I was 12. I was at camp, and my parents came and told me, and they wouldn't take me home to go to the funeral. The entire family was killed, so they felt it would be too traumatic for me to go to this funeral with my friend, her younger brother, her parents. It was a big mistake because grieving, you need something concrete to latch onto, and I wasn't able to grieve with my peers. And it took me much longer, I think, to move through it because I didn't really have a sense. It was too surreal. I mean, at 12, I didn't know a lot about death anyway, but I think it was just too surreal. So, my advice to people who are dealing with children who have lost somebody is to let them go to those funerals because they need to understand it. And that the whole purpose of funerals is to grieve together. It's really obviously not for the deceased. It's for the families to bond together in grief, and not having that denies that opportunity. It's also a good model for a child. And I don't blame them because apparently they consulted a therapist who told them it would be just too traumatic. But it left me at camp with this counselor. And if you've ever been to camp, your counselor's like 18 or 19.
Right.
She didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of life experience. She was great, but she, was suddenly confronting this child who was going through this deep grief and crying all the time. And on the third day after they came, I ran away. I distinctly remember that I just ran away and there wasn't anywhere to go. I mean, this was a kind of an enclosed place, but I just ran into the woods and hid out for several hours, missed a meal. They eventually found me, but I just needed to be alone. And it was so overwhelming. And you know, I think I would have processed it differently. So I do think we need to be together with people when we're grieving. I think there's a bond that happens. So I have learned that, and I would not protect my children from that when they were young. When we had, they were, at funerals of grandparents, and nobody died when they were really young, but even they lost a friend when they were in high school, and they were both very active participants in that grieving and going to the funeral and supporting the family. And I think that's healthy. It's what we do as a culture.
It's part of that healing. It's part of the community aspect of it, and realizing you're not alone in your grief as well.
Absolutely.
And, to be at camp like that and feel so alone.
Yeah.
Everyone else is out celebrating, doing activities, and here you are wrestling with the meaning of life. 12, that's a lot to carry.
It was a lot to carry, and it took me years. And she had just given me a book to go to camp with that she had made for me to write down my stuff, and we were going to try, share my experience. And, I had like a whole little box of all memorabilia to do with her, the clipping on the plane crash and all of that for years until I moved. So, I carried it within me. And I still do because I just mentioned it in an article.
Yeah.
And, just wondering what she would have become. I mean, losing your life at 12 when you are so young, and how hard that is.
So as we wrap up, Lisa, we'll include links to your website so that people can watch and track your amazing book tour and come out and see you in person and celebrate. I'm sure it's going to be a great time of interaction from a reader with an author. this is kind of the idea for my podcast. I want to create kind of like a book tour, but to do it in person is just another whole level. To be able to come and shake your hand and give you a hug and say, I love what you do. I think that's such a special thing that you can do that. So that's amazing. But as we kind of wrap up, Lisa, I'm curious if you could kind of summarize the book in a love letter form to the reader that's contemplating buying the book for themselves, a family member, someone they love, that this book will help them. If you could kind of summarize it in kind of a love letter form to that reader, how would you describe the book to them?
I would say, I love you enough to want you to support you on this journey through grief, because grief is universal and her journey is all of our journeys. Teresa is everybody. She's every one of us when we're grieving. She's the universal character who has her own specific journey, but it really is all of our journeys. We are bonded through grief. So if I'm giving this book to somebody I love, I would say, I love you enough to want to support you through this journey in life, because it's part of the human condition. We have loss. We're mortal. And being mortal makes us want to savor every day. And I think that's what finally it comes down to, is that we have to live in the moment and we have to savor every day and celebrate small triumphs, even when we're in really dark times. And I think ultimately it is inspirational and hopeful. I hope that it is. That is my quest. And I would also say that anybody who wants to get in touch with me can reach out to me via my website. I am very good about interacting with writers who want to know more.
Excellent. And when show up, go look at the events page. You'll see all the places that Lisa's going to be. Put it in your calendar now. Put a reminder, set it, and show up with your copy of the book in your hand. Lisa would love to sign it for you and have a conversation with you about the book. Come with your questions. Come with your comments. I'm sure Lisa would love to get your feedback. It's one thing to throw it on a website and leave a review. It's another thing to talk to the author directly and give them your feedback. I'm sure she'd love to hear your thoughts on the book as well.
Yeah, and this isn't the end of the book tour. I will be coming back in June because and I should do a short plug for that. I co-direct Mesa Verde Writers Conference and Literary Festival, and that is July 9th through 11th is the conference. It's about half full now, so if you're interested in it, www.mesaverdewritersconference.org. And we are piloting a brand new literary festival this year. We put an all call to writers across the country, and we got 58 responses, and 50 have confirmed. And just to tell you how cool it is, we don't have any money. I mean, we are doing this on a prayer. And we thought, well, people aren't going to do it if we can't pay them. We live in, kind of this far-flung area, and 50 of them are coming from all across the country, as far away as New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, and some of the western places, Utah, New Mexico. And they're going to come in, and the way I put it is, the town's going to be stupid with writers. They're going to be walking around, and they're going to offer free panels, free workshops, and readings. And it's going to be Saturday, July 12th in Mancos, Colorado, all day, and it's free. And we're going to have at least one, if not two, keynotes who are really well-known writers who are also volunteering their time. So this is just a labor of love where writers get to hang out and meet their readers. So if you're a reader and you want to come out to an absolutely gorgeous place near Mesa Verde National Park, come on out. I will be there. I'm not one of the writers reading because I coordinate the festival, but I'll be walking around and I'll be very visible. So, put it on your calendar and get accommodations early because it's tourist season. So it's really busy around here. But and the weather's always good. We have about 90% sunshine here in Colorado. So it's almost never cloudy.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Bring your sunscreen.
Bring your sunscreen and bring your reading glasses because you're going to have a lot to read over that period of time, too. That's amazing. I love it. Lisa, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for sharing so much with us around your book. We're celebrating with you and excited to see what's next for you. Keep us in mind. I know my audience would love to reconnect with guests when they work on future projects. We'll keep the door propped open. You can come back anytime and talk about what you're working on next. We'd love to have you back.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Excellent, everyone. All the information is always in the show notes. Go there and support Lisa. Make sure you show up when you see your town, your city on that list of events, or you're anywhere close. Make that a priority. You need to be there and meet Lisa in person. Lisa, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, as we exit the podcast, as we leave out the door, I know the car's running. Somebody's eagerly waiting for you to get out there and go home. As we exit the podcast, I just want to ask, if you have time, I would truly appreciate it. We ask for you to do this for our authors. When you buy your book, we ask you to leave a review. Why? Because it means a lot to the author and it tells other people that the book is great. Now, you don't hear me ask for this very often, so I'm going to do this here because we're friends, right? You and I are friends. I would love a review of this show because it'll tell more people to come and listen to this podcast. So if you have Apple, wherever you're listening, there's probably some way to give a star rating or leave a comment about the show. YouTube, you can always leave comments on YouTube. Every episode's there. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a review, leave a rating, and share this with somebody. That's probably the best way to grow the podcast, is for you to share it. And by listening to the end of the episode, like you're doing right now, tells all the apps this is a good podcast. So thank you for already helping me by listening to this part. But go leave a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you for being part of the podcast family. Take care.